Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and yes, you read the title of what I'm reviewing. This happens to be a sequel to the original / very first film about the eighth wonder of the world, King Kong himself. Yes, of course, the 1933 King Kong film. Again, the very first version of King Kong. And of course, not long ago, I reviewed that film, and if you want to go check it out, I highly recommend it, and before you watch what I'm reviewing. Yes. Well, I wasn't really familiar and was not really aware of this film and the fact that the original / very first King Kong film had a sequel, and the fact that it came out literally the same year, and it came out, months after the first film, and it came around, the holiday season, and it took the crew 9 months to shoot this that same year, and for it to be released 9 months later. My gosh, that's impressive, and impressive that, that a sequel would come out the same year as, the first movie. You know what I mean? That's just crazy. Yes, I'm of course talking about the sequel to the original King Kong, titled Son of Kong. Yes, Son of Kong. Oh boy, because again, the history, of how this movie, what this movie went through, and because again, the RKO, who distributed the first King Kong film, in fact, they did, because they're the same company that distributed the first Disney animated films like Snow White and Pinocchio, and, Bambi, Dumbo, etc. Basically, they approved of there being a sequel made, but it had to be done, and for it to be released, later that year, that same year. And they wanted to have the audience still remember King Kong, still be fresh in their minds and not forget about it, and not to have any other studio do their own version of King Kong and so on. Well, and, for the people that made the sequel, they did their very best, and, of course, they did their very best not to have the sequel be better as the first one, and that's understandable. So, yeah, and for me, as I record this, I watched it for the first time fully, and I gotta say, I was impressed with it. I didn't think it was that bad. I quite enjoyed this sequel. There was something to it that was just so good, and the fact that this is a short movie. When you look at the running time of this movie, my golly, it's not as long as the first one, man. And when I watched it, because golly, just how it went by fast, you know what I mean? That's crazy. Alright, so now, and as always, I'll read the description / the story of Son of Kong. After his disastrous venture of the giant ape, King Kong, promoter Carl Denham, once again played by Robert Armstrong, flees New York to avoid indictment from a grand jury. I'm pretty sure I got that one word right. He sails off with friend Captain Engelhorn, once again played by Frank Reacher, however, you know me sometimes pronouncing words and last names. And soon gets involved with singer Helena Peterson, played by Helen Mack. When a crooked sea captain kills Helena's father, she stows away on board Denham's boat, which heads to Kong's home on Skull Island. There, the group befriends Kong's son, who defends them against the resident dinosaurs. So, literally, this film picking up / taking place where, we last left off in the first film. Because, yep, the aftermath of Kong, bringing disaster and destruction to New York / Manhattan, and even, you know, after the murdering of King Kong, you know, he was taken down by the planes, or, you know, as Carl Denham put at it wasn't the airplanes, it was beauty killed the beast. Well, for Carl Denham, once again played by the late Robert Armstrong, well, basically, his life has pretty much gone downhill because, well, everybody is blaming him. He's being sued for the destruction and damaged, you know, properties to New York and so on. You know, of course, after bringing Kong from his home to New York. And yeah, it's where, and in the film, and, you know, throughout the film, because Carl Denham, you know, has a lot of guilt on him. And, you know, because, you know, he basically, he says at one point that he should have left Kong where he belonged, you know, in his home. And he should have. But of course, you know, he was blinded by, you know, making money and being greedy and so on. But of course, you know, I think it was that point because he woke up and, you know, slowly but surely throughout the film, because he was starting to be redeemed. And, you know, throughout the journey that he would have in this movie. And he is reunited with some familiar faces. The captain, Captain Engelhorn, yeah, if I'm saying the name right, and played by the late Frank Riescher, if I'm even saying the last name right. And the Chinese cook who appeared in, you know, the first King Kong film, and yeah, this time in Son of Kong, the characters say his name, Charlie, that's his name, Charlie, played by Victor Wong, the late Victor Wong, and we of course get the introduction of some new characters, but until I get to them. And by the way, because, you know, I even read this, that, you know, this film does not have the appearance, nor does it mention anything about the two previous characters from the first King Kong film, Anne and Driscoll. Yeah, they are never mentioned in Son of Kong. Well, I assume that, you know, that probably they went on their merry little lives and, you know, getting together and so on. That's a good guess, you know. So basically Carl and the captain, because yeah, the captain feels responsible as well for bringing Kong to New York, and he has guilt in him as well. They decide to basically get out of New York and start making money by, you know, doing cargo shipments and so on. Yeah, for them to make money and so on. And while they're delivering a cargo shipment on this island, they happen to catch a show, a performance that is hosted by a guy named Peterson, played by the late Clarence Wilson. And basically, he has some monkeys performing, which is a pretty funny scene, like these monkeys playing miniature instruments, you know, it's like marching band instruments and so on. And, you know, only Carl and Charlie, they're the only two that are really enjoying this, while the rest of the audience, even the Captain Engelhorn, you know, they're not amused, you know. But again, only Carl and Charlie, they're the only ones that are really entertained by this. I mean, I would be too, and yet they're the only ones, Carl and Charlie, that they applaud. So, and then Peterson brings out and introduces his daughter, who is a, you know, singer and plays guitar, Hilda, played by the late Helen Mack. And not a really good singer, even according to the captain, but Charlie, both Charlie and Carl, they don't care. They're still enjoying it. And then at one point, later that evening, Peterson has, you know, has a drinking time with another captain by the name of Captain Nils Hellstrom. Yeah, not Nils, I think I got the middle name right. The first name right, that is. And yeah, because Hillstrom being played by the late John Marston. At one point, Hillstrom and Peterson get into like a little brawl. I mean, Hilda's father, Peterson, who runs like the show that's on that island and with, you know, the monkeys, and there was also sea lions as well, even though we didn't see the sea lions doing any act. Basically, yeah, Peterson is a big-time drinker, and I guess he was just trying to get, a bottle from Hillstrom, and Hillstrom knocks him out, and at one point, it causes a fire to erupt and start burning the tent. Hillstrom gets out of there, and Hilda, who was sleeping, she wakes up, obviously to the smelling of the fire and the burning and so on. Well, she does help the animals get out of their cages, and dragging her drunken and, knocked out father from out of there. And apparently, out of nowhere, Hilda's father dies. Really? That's how he dies? I mean, nothing really serious happened, severely happened to Peterson, and nothing that Hillstrom did. I mean, what, how did, him knocking him out and so on, how did that caused, her father to die? I'm just saying, not that I'm really trying to complain, So unfortunately, Hilda, with her losing her father and the show itself, the business that they've run, Carl trying to, comfort Hilda at one point, and hey, you know what, because both Carl and Hilda, they too now share something in common. Well, what they both went through, and the fact, the business that they were doing, and how just, for both of them, just their lives went downhill, so there you go. And Hilda, seeking revenge on Hillstrom after what he did to her father, and at least, for them, because, she's just, staring at him so, revengely, I guess you could say, and, that's when, Hillstrom actually, he meets up with Carl and the captain, and it turns out Hillstrom was the guy who, told Carl about the island that Kong resided in. He introduced it to him by giving him the map of the island where Kong was, and thus, giving the island a name, Skull Island. So yeah, Hillstrom was that guy, so that's pretty cool. And Hillstrom tells Carl and the captain about, what else is on Skull Island, and that being hidden treasure. And of course, as it turns out, and if you would sense the fact that, yeah, Hillstrom is basically using them, because obviously Hillstrom is an asshole, and he's just wanting to get the money and be, of course, he's greedy and so on. So, Carl and the captain, they go along with this. They don't suspect anything from Hillstrom, and thus they make their way back, to Skull Island. And sure enough, well, at one point, Carl said his goodbyes to Hilda, but I had a feeling that this happened, and of course, yeah, Hilda snuck on the boat and is now with Carl and the rest of the characters. And throughout, the scenes where, the boat is traveling back to Skull Island, even at one point, we see the natives who reside on Skull Island, they see the ship coming, and even at one point, the whole crew turns against Carl, Hilda, their own captain, because obviously Hillstrom said something to, each of the crew, and even Carl and, the captain were suspecting something, what Hillstrom was doing, because of his behavior. And, it seems like Hillstrom now has the crew on his side, and, they're forced off the ship and in a small boat, and Charlie tags along with them. It's not because that the crew, forced him off the boat. Charlie chose to leave the boat because, as he says, I don't like these white men, what Charlie said. I guess I can understand that, they're just a bunch of drunken assholes, on the boat, I guess, to put at it. And sure enough, the crew also turns against Nellstrom as well, because Nellstrom, he thinks that he's in charge now, but the crew, they just laugh at him, and they don't want a captain. They just want to be themselves, just be a crew that's running the ship and so on, and they throw him out of the ship, and he, lands in the water, and thus he joins along with, our four characters, yeah. yeah, four fingers. Jeez Louise. So they make their way to Skull Island, and sure enough, the natives do not greet them very well. I think even they do recognize who they are, especially we get the appearance of the native chief once again, and yeah, the captain, he can speak their language. Well, they just want them, away from this part of the island, they don't want to see them. Get them out of they want them out of their sights. Understandable, especially what happened in the first King Kong film, because, well, when Kong broke the doors and he, brought chaos to the native village, so I don't blame them. So they go to another part of the island, and yeah, that's where they start trying to look for the treasure, and even at one point when Carl and Hilda, they start climbing some, rocks, on a side of a mountain, they see Little Kong. Yep, and thus we finally get the appearance of King Kong's flesh and blood, his very own son, Little Kong. Yeah, and it turns out that Little Kong is nothing like his old man, his old ape man, I guess you could say. Yeah, and by the way, because, the stop motion, let's come to the stop motion for a moment. The stop motion in this, once again done by the late legendary stop motion animator Willis O'Brien, the stop motion in this is not all that bad. Besides, it's Willis O'Brien, what he brought to the first King Kong film, But, seeing as how that, again, when it came to making this movie, they only had 9 months, 9 months to make this, and obviously it was very rushed for Willis O'Brien. And, I'm sure, like the rest of the crew filming it, Willis did his very best, to do the stop-motion animation, and, yeah, I think he succeeded as well. But yeah, because I think it's obvious there are at times, especially for Little Kong, there's some cartoony stuff. Moments with Little Kong and his facial expressions, his personality. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really complaining, but I did chuckle at a couple of stuff. There literally is a moment where Little Kong's literally, I'm not joking. And if you have seen this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So when Carl and Hilda come across Little Kong, they discover and see that Little Kong is stuck in quicksand. And also, Little Kong is not that big, because he's 12 inches, 12 feet, however Carl established, he's not as big as, well, his dad, so, probably say about, it depends on, say the size of your house, maybe somewhere between that, I don't know, or maybe probably close to the size of an elephant, I don't know. So, yeah, Carl and Hilda, they do help out Little Kong to get out of the quicksand, and in return, Little Kong following them as they're trying to find the treasure, yeah, because at one point, yeah, they all split it up, Carl and Hilda together, while the other three, the captain, Charlie, and Hillstrom, yeah, it was them. And as I said, yeah, Little Kong following Carl and Hilda wherever they go and protecting them from dinosaur threats. Well, not to mention, the captain, Charlie, and Hillstrom, well, they get into a dinosaur situation as well. I think Triceratops, yeah, chases them into a cave. Of course, they're safe in the cave, away from the Triceratops. And, even at one point when they were thrown off the ship, they did have food and water. The crew was at least nice enough to loan them food and water, but no weapons. But, good thinking on Charlie. Yeah, he did stow a couple of guns for them to use. And yeah, because Carl having a gun and the captain having a gun as well. And at one point, from the captain and Carl, the guns that they're using, they do at one point get destroyed and damaged. I gotta say, with Little Kong protecting Carl and Hilda from the dinosaur attacks, the stop-motion animation with Little Kong, versus, the dinosaurs, not bad, not bad at all. Again, Willis O'Brien got the job done when it came to, doing stop motion animation with Little Kong fighting the dinosaurs just like what he brought in the first King Kong film. It's Willis O'Brien for you. Yeah, because, like, Little Kong, he doesn't kill them, he just, like, knocks them out, and, yeah, even at one point, because there was a moment where Little Kong, I guess, got a little bit of a wounded spot on his finger, and Hilda ripped off a part of her dress, and so Carl, like, helping Little Kong to wrap it up and so on. It's pretty impressive, because just like what they did in the first King Kong film, they did once again build like a giant like animatronic part for Little Kong, and this time the only thing that was used for Little Kong in this was just his arm, especially because with the close-up shot of Carl attending to the wounded spot on his finger, and yeah. And even Carl interacting with Little Kong, and, he is apologizing to Little Kong after what he did to his dad. Yeah. Because again, as I said, throughout this film, Carl starts to become a better person, a better man, and of course, he is redeemed. And you know what? I think that this movie did a good job on that for the character of Carl Denham. Okay, so to speed things up a little, Carl and Hilda are the first two to finally, find the hidden treasure on Skull Island, and with the help of Little Kong by opening a door that leads to the treasure, and yeah, they do find it. Another dinosaur stepping in, and of course, once again, Little Kong helping and protecting and saving Carl and Hilda, while the other three, the two captains and Charlie, catching up to Carl and Hilda. But at one point, after the first time that Carl and Hilda encountered Little Kong and saving him from the quicksand, they did at one point, meet up with the two captains and Charlie, and secretly Carl told Captain Engelhorn, yeah, about, seeing Little Kong, and how, they can't tell Hillstrom about Little Kong because, what Hillstrom's been going through and so on, and don't want him to be terrified and so on. Well, because, they do find the treasure, Little Kong helping them and taking care of the dinosaur that was about to attack them, and a funny moment, another funny moment with Little Kong as he's messing around and playing with the gun that Carl had, and at one point accidentally, firing it off, and at one point, yeah, he accidentally breaks it apart, and Carl at one point called Little Kong, big rummy. Like, what exactly does that mean? I don't know. You can let me know. So yeah, the two captains and Charlie, they do finally meet up with Carl and Hilda, and sure enough, Hillstrom, for the first time, sees Little Kong. He's terrified, of course, and he flees, heading back to the boat, and yeah, that's when they have to catch up with Hillstrom, or else he's gonna take the boat with him and just leave them behind. Again, because, what a dick Hillstrom is at times. And, Carl tells all three of them to catch up with him while he gets the treasure, and of course Little Kong still being with him. And sure enough, when Hillstrom makes his way back to the boat, well, he accidentally, landed in the water, slipped into the water, that is. Well, because, a dinosaur water-like creature rose, and, yep, unfortunately, Hillstrom meets his demise. Well, he technically got what he deserved, so, So that's the end for Hillstrom. And at one point, out of nowhere, a devastating, huge earthquake happens, and basically it causes the destruction of Skull Island, literally. And, there's a moment where you see the natives running for their lives, fleeing and, trying to get off the island. And even when, Hilda, Engelhorn, and Charlie, they did get to the boat, and thus they rowed out of there, while Carl and Little Kong still being at the location where the treasure is, and Little Kong, of course, protecting and helping Carl through the earthquake, and because, yeah, the island is, tearing itself apart because of the earthquake, and there's a huge storm. Oh my gosh, so much happening. And once, like, the island starts, breaking apart and what's left of the island, and Little Kong and Carl, they're on top of, part of the island. Well, at one point, unfortunately, Little Kong got his foot stuck in part of the mountain, and, he lifts Carl up into the air, because obviously, Little Kong saving Carl, and thus, when Hilda, Engelhorn, and Charlie make their way to rescue and save Carl, and, all we see left is, Little Kong's hand. He's sinking down, he's gonna drown, and, unfortunately, sadly, Little Kong did not make it. He sacrificed himself, and Little Kong became a hero. And again, it shows. Little Kong is nothing like his father because, he's a good ape, and that's good. That's what's really good and what the film brought, A relative and somebody in the Kong family who's good. So, And the epilogue because, well, sure enough, the 4 remaining characters, they do eventually get rescued by a ship, and, we get one last scene / moment with Carl and Hilda, and, Hilda, because since they're returning back, obviously, to New York, Carl, is wondering, where she's gonna go, and she basically, kind of hints at him, gives him a hint and, and so on, that, she wants to be with him and so on. Yeah, because they sure enough did hit it off, especially when they were on Skull Island, and thus, boom, being together, Carl gets a lady of his own, and it was a very nice and touching ending right there, especially since, the treasure that they managed to get, and thus, what a nice way to end the film right there. A happy ending / happily ever after for the character of Carl Denham, because, again, he became a better man, a better person, and he was fully redeemed. And especially, he found true love of his own, and, being with Hilda, and obviously Hilda helped change him as well and become a better man. It's obvious. Yeah. Again, it was a nice way to end Son of Kong right there. Son of Kong, I think, is a pretty enjoyable, decent sequel. It may not be the best, and obviously, it cannot top off, the original / first King Kong film. Of course, and as I explained, the crew working on this film, they were not intending to, have this be better than the first, and that's good. And, again, just everything to it, the storytelling and how it's more focused on the human characters and, with Little Kong and, his personality, and, again, for this being a very short movie, that's hard to believe. And if any of you had watched this for the first time, you just realize, and just like what I realized too when watching it for the first time, that wow, this went by fast. You get my point. So I'm giving Son of Kong, it's on my mind, 8 out of 10 stars. Yes, 8 out of 10 stars for Son of Kong. And what about you guys? What did you think of Son of Kong itself? Do you think it's a pretty good, decent sequel? Did you enjoy it? Were you surprised to realize that, wow, this was a short movie? Like me, how I felt after watching the film. And what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. So, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Son of Kong. More review videos are on the way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. And stay tuned later tonight, because the next film I'm going to be reviewing, well, it's Pee-wee Herman's second feature film. Yeah, you know exactly which Pee-wee film I'm talking about, where, yep, he basically comes across a circus. Stay tuned for that later tonight. And happy anniversary to Son of Kong. Take care and peace out.